disciplines encompass some sort of research project, and the methods used across these fields are probably going to differ, but it's still research nonetheless. And this makes research methods a subject in its own right. It's universal. Those skills, whatever your discipline, you're going to need those skills to produce that best research project. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today, introducing our fantastic Sage Research Methods platform that's been designed with this very focus in mind, supporting a variety of needs and challenges, helping with issues and problems, developing those skills, and all focused on research. So there are two main things we're going to look at today. So when you're doing research, it's really important that you have a solid plan, that you're planning ahead. Time-wise, have you organised each stage and considered the time you'll need to complete your research? Have you considered all the tasks that go into doing your project and how you're going to approach them? So from decisions on gathering data, analysis of that data, writing up, editing, disseminating your work. There are numerous project planning tools online. I'm going to show you today our project planner as a really good example of the things you need to be planning and thinking about as you embark on your project, and how you can use this to guide you through your research. If you're teaching research skills or supporting a research project, you might be looking for a project planning framework or guidance that you can share to enhance the skills of your researchers and make the research at your institution the best it can possibly be. Additionally, the methods you're going to use to produce your work, the ways in which you plan to do your research are really important. How are you going to gather your data? Is it going to be survey research, documentary research? Will you need to run a literature review? Will you be doing qualitative interviews, statistical analysis? Are you going to run a focus group or an online survey? And then once you've collected that data, what can you do with it? If you're new to research, you might be looking for those key definitions, guidance on where to start. And even the more experienced researchers might be thinking about upskilling, about working consistently within a team of co-researchers on keeping up to date with the latest developments within the various methods, and to continually enhance the quality of your research. You might even want to use a completely new method that you've never used before. To think about our planning and the methods we're going to use, I'm going to go in a moment to our Sage Research Methods platform, and this is a database of thousands of high quality, engaging and interactive resources and materials, and they're all solely dedicated to research projects, research methods, and the aim is to support users in doing that best research possible. So we're thinking about our project step by step. We need to have that plan in place from early planning stages, deciding how to approach the research, the data collection and analysis, through to presentation or publication of that data. And we also want to build up our research skills, enhance that quality of that research, whatever level your confidence or stage of study. And Sage Research Methods is a really good example of a one-stop shop that will demonstrate all of this for us today. So we're on the home page of Sage Research Methods, and we're thinking about making that research plan and focusing on the methods you're going to use to collate your data, analyse it, and right through that journey where you're going to publish or disseminate your information. So let's look at our plan first. And on Sage Research Methods, we have a really good example of an online project planner, something you can use to help you through that research journey. And we're thinking here about the importance of organising our research and writing and thinking about the different stages of a project. So if I go to our research tools and our project planner, that's hopefully going to come up on the screen for me. So it's really important that you've got some sort of plan, and you can see the planner on screen as an example of a framework to help you plan your research. And it takes you through the logical steps through the stages of the research project. So from defining a topic, developing your question, designing your research, collecting and analysing your data and writing up. And as you go through your own research plan, there are questions you need to be asking yourself that you'll then need to go and find the answers to. The project planner is a really good example of this. Each section is set out as a question that you might ask yourself as you approach your research, and the platform then gives you the answer to those. So for example, I'm in research design. Which method should I use? What kind of data do I want to generate? Should I use one method or multiple methods? So examples of questions you might be asking as you approach your research. If I click on what kind of data do I want to generate, We can see here lots of information, the difference between quantitative and qualitative data, really breaking that information down. We've got some videos explaining the different types of data collection. And within the platform, you'll also find there are always options to find out more, to click to further information. And that sort of leads us to thinking about doing that initial exploration, finding out more about how you're going to run your project, how you're going to maybe collect, what method you're going to use, how are you going to collect that data, find out more about your method and how to approach your project. And having a plan such as this is really good for students who might not be confident in where to start. If you want to be independent and move through your project, have that framework there to let you know what's expected and what to think about at each stage. Also for teaching and learning purposes, having an excellent research framework that you can use when you're overseeing a project, a tool to support your students or your researchers who might be attending research skills workshops. And for those more experienced researchers, you might be looking to upskill, looking at those recent developments, improving a technique, and having a plan to refer to can really help move your research along. So you might be further on in your project, you might be ready to analyse, write up or disseminate your research. If I click on data analysis and interpretation here. So another part of planning is collating all of your resources and organising your work as you go. And we can see here there are some questions. What is narrative analysis? What is framework analysis? We might want to look at what is thematic analysis, and that might be something we're thinking about using. So we're going to start collating these resources, and you can see on Sage Research Methods there's a functionality here to enable me to share and also to cite and use this work, but also to add it to a list. So we're going to add this to our list. I'm going to add it to, I have a thematic analysis list. I'm going to add that there, and we're going to come back to that later. So once we've got our plan, you want to look into each step of your research in a little bit more detail, and you can start looking for content to develop those research skills and complete your projects. So we talked also, we were thinking about the methods we want to use. You might not even be sure. I'm going to go to another tool to demonstrate this. So under research tools, we've got our methods map. I get quite excited about the methods map, I must warn you. It's very addictive, and I'm sure if you go and have a look, you'll enjoy using it. But the methods map I'm showing you here is a visualization tool that breaks down the topics and really shows you how concepts and methods relate to one another, helping you make decisions on the methods you want to use, maybe introducing you to a new method you hadn't considered before. And it also leads you to further content to support your project. Really interactive. It gives you a brilliant visual. You can see here, research methods is my main topic, and I've got a nice definition of what that is. But I might want to break that down a little further. And the idea of the methods map is it allows you to search those narrower terms. And the idea is that the narrower you go, the more granular and the specialized the breakdown of information is. So I might want to look at qualitative data analysis. And I can see that's now become my main search term, my main definitions here at the top, approaches to interpretation and understanding of material from qualitative methods. And I've got the option there to search all content on qualitative data, but that still might be a little bit broad. I might need to go a little bit narrower, and I can start thinking, I can see my thematic analysis there, but there might be other methods I haven't considered before. I might want to look at conversation analysis. I can look at the definition of that, maybe have a look at the content. Is this what I'm looking for? Maybe not. I can go back and have a look at something else. So it's really easy to navigate and really important in looking at how these concepts are all talking to one another and really allowing you to explore what they are and what they mean. It's a great place to start if you're not sure what you're looking for. If you've heard a term but you don't know what it means, you can look that up and explore it further to help you determine what the best approach might be and to look further into it. If you are thinking about a particular method, so for example, we'll stick with our thematic analysis. I'm going to search for more information on this. I can see there's information on the method here. Let's give that a click. That's now become my main search term, and I can see a definition of it. So an analytic approach in qualitative research for retrieving themes that emerge out of data such as interview transcripts. So that sounds like it's exactly something I'm looking for. And what I can do is I can now search all the content on thematic analysis resources, and really start getting that content together, understanding my method, and understanding exactly how I'm going to approach my project. And you can see the content here in various formats. I might want to look at a video, a definition of thematic analysis might be a really good starting point for me. And again, I can add that to my resources. So getting all my resources together, collecting all my information. Speaking of our reading list, let's go and have a look. We've added a couple of things to it now. So perhaps I'm going to go to my profile, my reading list, and I can see when it loads up, I've got my thematic analysis reading list here. So when conducting your research, it's really important to be organised. So as well as you plan, think about the resources you're using. And we've added items to our reading list here, and we can come back to these really quickly. We can see the project planner I added and the video as well. And as faculty, I might want to share this list with my students. Librarians might want to put together lists, and you can embed or share these. You might want to add them to subject library catalogues, covering research methods linked to a particular field or discipline or to a particular method. And researchers, it's really quick and easy to find your materials. So think about the resources that are going to be useful to you in your planning. Let's take a look at the couple of different types of resources we're looking at. So I've got a book here, full digital online versions of print text on the platform. So use your library, check out the various resources and materials you can access. And here we have our book. And again, we can cite this, we can reference it really quickly. We can link or share this, and we can add it to a reading list. We can download it to read it offline, really use it more to find out about our research method. In my reading list, I've also got a video. So while planning your project, you don't have to limit yourself to books and texts. Videos can be a really good way of finding out more away from books and journals, a good way to bring some new and engaging multimedia into your study, a great way of learning. It adds a different type of content to your research and to your reading list or to your virtual learning environment, a course page, really bringing those methods to life. And the video collections on this particular platform on Sage Research Methods cover every aspect of the research process. And with the videos, you can find tutorials, interviews, video case studies, mini documentaries that cover that research process, but they really enable you to see the method in practice, experts who can tell you more. You might be able to see, for example, a group interview in action, or an interview with or a tutorial from a key contributor to the field who might offer a different viewpoint. And we can watch this tutorial. We might want to again embed this into our learner management system or virtual learning environment for students on a particular course. So videos are a really great way to find out more as you're gathering your resources, planning your project, putting together information on your methods. You might want to look at how others have carried out a similar project. So thinking about the themes, the concepts and methods that have been taught in the classroom, but how is that applied in real research? And in the case study I've listed here, we're thinking about commentaries by real life researchers on how they conducted a real research project. So a story, a journey through their project, what obstacles they faced, what worked, what didn't, how they chose their methods, a story of how they ran their project, and with exercises and discussion questions to find out more. So we can see a thematic analysis of interviews with women with breast cancer. And in this section here, we can drop that down. We can have a look at some of those exercises and those discussion questions. You might want to use those if teaching and learning. You might want to reflect on what you've just read. And this one's quite nice. It offers a step-by-step list of if you're conducting a qualitative research using thematic analysis, it's essential that you follow a couple of steps. So you've got that experience from this person who's run the real life research project. So as a researcher, you might find cases that inspire you to take your own original research in a particular direction. You're going to find some relevant cases and maybe explore them, investigate them, really see that research in action, get some ideas or take some lessons from it. These cases are really good for zoning in on why a researcher made the choices that they did in their projects. So when you're carrying out your own project, it's really useful to find a case, see if somebody else has faced similar challenges to you, how they've approached it. And reading these cases, it gives you a sort of evidence on taking a certain approach. And in this case, maybe even the steps you might follow. So lots of ways you can use these to identify best practice and help make your research the best it can possibly be. A really good teaching tool to demonstrate a particular method and to see how it's been applied in real research. And finally, I've saved a data set. So when you've collected your data, you're going to need to analyze it. And how can you practice those analysis skills? Well, for that, we have data sets. They're a really engaging way of getting real life hands-on practice. Basically, you're going to find a data sample and practice analysing it. You're using that real life data to help you practice and develop those skills. So the platform contains sample data sets, both qualitative and quantitative, for you to analyse. And you can see this is the transcription of 27 stories, which have been interpreted through a thematic analysis. It's not only the data that this includes, we can download that here and have a look at that data, but as well as that, we also have step-by-step guides on how you can approach that data set, instructions on how to handle and analyse the data, how you can use it to draw conclusions, and then for you to practice doing that yourself. And the idea is that when you go to analyse the data in your own project, perhaps using the same method, the thematic analysis, you've had some practice on exactly how to approach it and how to get the best out of your results. So have a look through and see the different ways they've been used in research. And you can use these in your teaching. So a brilliant resource for those wanting to learn or brush up on those analysis skills, for the cases and the data sets, seeing that method in practice. And they can be used in classroom exercises or exam papers too. So as you can see, if I go back to the home page of Sage Research Methods and the section here, you can see lots of high quality content, a wide range of formats to support you through your research, right from key definitions and reference works, dictionaries and encyclopedias and so on. Lots of different options for you to really get that information together. We've also got a search. The real best way to approach this is thinking about what methods do I want to use? What do I want to achieve? What do I need to do? What do I need to find out more about to get the best out of my research? What stage of my project am I at? If I look at literature review, and I will try and spell that correctly today, there we go. You might be up to your literature review thinking about the content, about the different resources you can gather, all part of your planning. And here we go. I've typed an example. I'm doing my literature review again. Start thinking about that content and really pulling that together so that you can really think about how you're going to plan your research and getting all those important resources together in one place. So I hope that's given you some good ideas about planning your research, about the different types of resources available to you and how these can be used, whether in your own research or in supporting researchers at your institution to do the best research possible. If you do have any questions about Sage Research Methods, I've popped my details on there, but I know Veronica is more than supportive, so please do get in touch if you're interested in more information on the platform. I will say a final thank you for inviting me along to speak to you today. It's been a pleasure and a delight. I hope you all keep well. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Claire. It was really very informative. And of course, as always, you did a great demonstration on the Sage Research Methods platform, giving the attendees really a great insight and idea as to how the Sage Research Methods can, of course, add value to universities, but not only to the universities, but to the students as well. So as always, your time is really greatly appreciated. There are unfortunately no questions in the chat box, but I've gave everyone permission to unmute themselves. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask Claire now. Otherwise, we will be moving on to the following presentation. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much, Veronica.
Claire, I see someone's hand is raised.
Thank you. Please, can I ask regarding, thank you, thanks for the presentation. Please, can I ask regarding whether this is open access now that we're teaching online, what are the legal issues regarding distributing this information online or just uploading it into our online classrooms?
Yeah, so
thanks.
Thanks very much for your question. So as with regards to open access, so what you would do is subscribe to the platform. You'd have a subscription or a purchase of the platform, and once you have done that, you have access to that content. So the open access is no longer a concern. It's more a fact of having that toll-free access to the platform, depending upon the modules that you decide to go with as part of your subscription. So I hope that helps and answers your question for you.
Thanks. Okay, I will experiment with this. I haven't created an account. Thank you so much. Thanks. That was helpful.
No worries. Thank you very much. I would say if you are interested in having a trial of the platform, or if you want to try it out, or please do speak to myself or Veronica, and we can absolutely arrange that for you, so you can have a little bit more of an explore and have a look at how that platform can really be beneficial to you and to your institution.
Clara, I see Tebogo's hand is raised. Tebogo.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, Clara. I just have a question. I'm a doctoral student, and I want to find out, is it possible to then migrate my research onto this platform, and it links to more research in terms of resources that you have on this platform?
So at the moment, thank you for your question. At the moment, it's not possible to integrate your own work onto the platform. But what I'd certainly advise is, if you have a good idea of where your research is going or what stage you're at, that's where the platform would then come into its own. So you could search for those resources to enhance your project. But it's certainly something for me to take away. I know that we're always looking to improve, particularly the project planner, and how we can make that more interactive to integrate more of your work into it. So it's something I will take away. Thank you very much for that as well. That's extraordinarily useful. But as for finding the resources, I'd probably say the best way to think about the platform is to think about the method you're using, the stage you're at your project, because that's where this platform will really come into its own, for you to do those searches and to find out more and start collecting that content separately. And I hope that helps.
Thank you so much for that, Claire. Yes, I think you did answer Tebogo's question. Well, there are no further questions from what I can see. There's nothing in the chat box or the Q&A. So from our side as well, Claire, thank you so much once again for the great presentation. I hope you have a lovely day further.
Thank you very much. You too. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye. Okay, so our following presentation will be on Colga Learn, and it will be presented by Zanele Makhoba.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the session. I'm going to start with my presentation now. All right. So the intention of this workshop was just to share, based on our experience and also based on some of the resources that we've come to represent as an agent. So basically share some strategies with you on empowering methodologies in academic research and writing, and some of the tools that we represent that are in line with your research methodologies, and just the general approach in terms of, first of all, developing your hypothesis formulation, formulating your questions, and then also formulating the goals of your research. So starting from that process, this is where a tool like Sage would come in, right? As well as a tool like Colga Learn. So while you are formulating your hypothesis, you're asking the questions, you're developing the goals for why you want to obviously embark on your research. So methodologies basically fall part of this process. So they assist you in terms of approaching this process much more systematically. And then all the way through to when you then design and collect your data. So in terms of data collection and designing how you are going to approach your study, we've got a few resources that are applicable in that space as well. And this includes this phase where you will do your literature review, and you will go into an aggregated database. And I'm not sure if you might be aware or not, but in South Africa, there are 6 accredited lists, right? And these accredited lists have been accredited by Department of Higher Education. And so the accredited lists basically are aimed at guiding researchers in terms of where to publish. So we take it a little bit further and say, not only should you be guided in terms of where to publish, but also in terms of the type of resources you should be consulting when you're doing your literature review. So there are various subject databases that we also represent as well. And depending on your library subscription, there's also quite a lot of databases that are applicable specific to subject areas. And the one that I'm going to talk about is the Web of Science, and mainly because it's an aggregated database. So it's across various subject areas. And then when you get to the data analysis, that's when then you start actually interpreting your findings. And then we get into your manuscript writing. And that's where we've got tools like Writeful. And I'm going to demonstrate how Writeful can be useful in that phase. As well as EndNote. EndNote not only assists you in terms of inserting your citations, but also in terms of giving you guidance as to where you could potentially publish your article. And then eventually what you want to do with that manuscript is to publish it, is to share it with like-minded individuals, is to also be able to present at conferences, etc. So we then have a platform which is called Chronos, and that is basically designed to assist you all the way from identifying a journal, paying APCs, up until you actually publish your article. So once you upload your manuscript on Chronos, the entire process is then handled by Chronos up until your article is actually published. So this is just the general workflow in terms of what is available or how you would typically approach your research paper. And this information we've actually gotten from Scholarly Kitchen. Right, so taking it a bit further. So starting with your hypothesis formulation, we have already heard a presentation by Claire that was quite clear in terms of what SAGE research methods can offer you while you are formulating your hypothesis and how you are going to approach your research. I'm going to talk a little bit on KagaLearn. And KagaLearn is basically a curriculum that is designed for different levels of research. So you could be an avid researcher or just a novice researcher, you're starting your project or you're starting your research paper. This is where you could go onto the platform. And then there are there's quite a number of modules that you could approach, that you could take up according to your own time. And this is paced according to your own availability as well. So you would just log on to the platform, register for whichever module is relevant for you at the time. And if your subscription covers it, then you would be able to conduct that course. This is quite helpful, not only for when you are a researcher, but if you also have, if you have aspirations of becoming a reviewer, this is they offer quite a good course in terms of how to review a systematic review paper. So there are quite a lot of courses that one can engage with. So please feel free if you want to find out more information about KagaLearn. It's similar to SAGE Research Method. The difference here is there's actually courses that you could take up online at your own pace. Now, the other difference here is mainly that it has quite a number of languages. There's about 9 language options that are available on the platform. And the platform in itself is actually quite interactive and engaging as well. So it's a matter of what would be your preference. Do you prefer a much more static platform or a much more interactive platform? So that is KagaLearn. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. We will engage further or we will send you more information. And as Veronica has alluded to earlier, this this webinar is actually being recorded. Now, moving on to this next phase of your research workflow is now starting to do your data collection and data analysis and design. So I'm going to show you a database which is called Web of Science, which is an aggregated database. So essentially what you find on the Web of Science is over 21,000 peer-reviewed journals. So when you're formulating, when you're doing your data collection, you want to collect data that has already been peer-reviewed, right? You want to collect, formulate your idea on peer-reviewed concepts, right? You want to formulate your ideas on conferences that are also have been peer-reviewed, book chapters as well that also have been peer-reviewed, and not only just peer-reviewed, but that are used in the scholarly context. And as you all know, there's a lot of information out there, but the question is, which database would give you a much more focused approach in terms of scholarly scientific data that has been peer-reviewed? So Web of Science offers you indexes in multiple subject areas. And the first one is the Science Citation Index, Social Sciences, Arts and Humanities, Emerging Sources, Conference Proceedings, Book Citation, as well as Current Chemical Reactions. And this is quite useful if you're trying to establish a pattern, right? So if, for example, you want to establish your hypothesis is that you want to prove that a particular methodology would work in terms of solving a particular scientific problem. So what you could do on the Web of Science is you would go in, obviously conduct your search on the basis of your topic, and then you can read what other researchers have already done, so that you're not starting from scratch. You're either building your work from research that's already been done, or you are proving a particular approach to be correct, or you are proving a particular approach to be much more broader than what was presented before. So what the platform aims to do is to give you what we call a cover-to-cover indexing. So once we capture a journal, we actually index the entire journal, including the authors, including quite a lot of bibliographic footprint. So what we do in that case is we would link an article all the way to the first concept that was designed, or the first concept that was ever written in a scholarly paper about that particular topic. So there's over 1.7 billion cited references that you could find in this database. And we also would give you more data like funding agencies. So if you're interested in finding out if there's a specific funding agency that funds work in a particular field, you could do that in this database. So this is called the Web of Science Core Collection. Probably there's a high possibility that your institution already subscribed to it. So please find out from your library if you have the Web of Science. It's a very good point of departure in terms of literature review. Right, moving on, you would then, after you've gathered your literature, you want to start citing, you want to start gathering your references, you want to start having all the bibliographic information of the content you're finding on various platforms in one place. And this is where you would use a tool like EndNote. And you would build your references there. If you're doing research with multiple researchers and you want to share your libraries, you could actually create groups and you would be able to share those libraries. So I just want to demonstrate just how these platforms would integrate. So I'm going to start with the Web of Science. So I would go into the Web of Science. I'm just going to log in quickly. I had logged out here. So this is the aggregated database. You would access this database from typically your library resources, the A to Z list, and then you would get to the Web of Science. And that is generally how most libraries present their resources to their end users. So if you want to find out how you could access, it would be much more useful to actually speak to your library and get to know what resources you are subscribed to. Right. Okay, while we're waiting for the Web of Science to load, I just want to share with you a free resource, which is called Knowable Magazine. And Knowable is published by Annual Reviews. Annual Reviews is a publisher who actually writes review papers, who reviews scholarly content. So it's quite also a good point of departure if you're doing your literature review. This is a free resource. So what Annual Review does is they take high-level scholarly content and they make it much more easier to read, much more easier to understand for the layman. The key concepts of that research paper, scientific concepts, remain the same, so that you don't necessarily lose the integrity of the scientific paper, but then they've just made that scientific paper much more easier to read, much more easier to understand for the layman. So it's a very good point of departure. That was just on the side note. Okay, sorry about that. Let me just try to do that again. I've been actually struggling to access. Okay, let me try again. Okay, that seems to be working better. Okay, I'm not winning. Oh, there we go. All right. So on this database, as I said, there's multiple indexes that you could go to. So in this case, I'm just going to search through documents. I could search through authors. Let's say I want to actually start collaborating with a specific author and I want to see their work. Then I could go in directly and do an author search or just do cited reference search. So I just want to do a document search. And in this case, I'm going to do a nanoparticles as an exact phrase. So let's say I'm trying to do research on nanoparticles. There's multiple fields that I could look through. I could look through topic, title, etc. But I'm just going to leave my search string on all fields because I'm just trying to say wherever there is nanoparticle mentioned, I would like to use those results as well. And I will have, so in this case, I've got three articles because I wanted the word nano and particles next to each other. And I'm searching through a specific database. So in this case, I could then go in and I want to look at the most cited document. So this one is most cited. So I can see that it's been cited 3 times and it has 13 references. So it basically means that it has received a lot of interest. So I could go in directly into the database, into the article, and I'll be able to identify key authors. I'll be able to get more metadata, the journal which this article has been published. And I could also go and see out of these references, these citations, which sections of this paper has actually been cited the most. And that is available if I drill in a little bit further into see more data, then I could go into that particular section of the paper that has been cited the most. And that depends on the type of search that I'm doing. So that information is available according to each field. So this is just an example. So let's say now I'm interested in this article. I want to add it to a bibliography manager. I want to add it to EndNote. So I'm just going to add it to EndNote and just export the reference. And I'm going to say, I want to export the entire record. And the reference manager, which is EndNote, will then include this reference into my reference manager. So just to recap what we've done. So I'm doing research. I've started with an aggregated database called the Web of Science. I've conducted a search. There's an article I'm interested in looking at, and I've just added that particular article onto my EndNote library. So if I go to my references, EndNote, and there is a version of EndNote that is available online. So all you need to do is just go Google EndNote, and then there is an option where you could just create a reference that is available, or that creates a library that is available for free online. And this is the version that I'm looking at the moment. So this is available for you if you just go in, you create an account, and you can use EndNote, particularly if you've got and you're writing your article, but then the person that is reviewing your work actually prefers that you use EndNote. You could have access to the free version of EndNote, it has limited features, I must say that, but you can actually start adding your references and work around your references that way. So that is how you would integrate databases into EndNote. So the other thing that you would also like to consult is various databases which are available within your institution. So if you're doing research in a specific field, I would really advise that find out from your library which databases are curated, peer-reviewed, scientific databases they subscribe to in relation to your subject field. I can never emphasize the subject area databases more enough. It's very important that you don't rely on your Google Scholars and these free aggregated solutions. But a lot of libraries spend a lot of money in investing in specific subject area databases. And this is one of them, just American Institute of Physics. There's a lot of free content as well available here as well, ladies and gents, as well as free chapters. So please feel free to just play around with some of these databases. Now, moving on, you've now gathered your data. I'm going to move on to my presentation. You've now gathered your data, and what you want to do now is actually start writing your paper. So I'm going to demonstrate a solution called Writeful. What Writeful is it's basically an automated proofreading platform for science, right? So I know most of you are probably thinking, how does it differ from Grammarly? Grammarly is a English focused editing tool. So Grammarly would correct you specifically in terms of English principles. But what Writeful does is not only does it correct you in terms of English principles, but it will correct you also in terms of scientific writing. So there is context within scientific writing. And that's the intention of Writeful. So it uses a lot of deep learning and artificial intelligence that it gathers across multiple millions and millions of articles just to learn how scholarly context or scholarly writing is done. And it's tailored specifically to give you feedback in that context. So what we mean by feedback in that regard is there's basically two aspects. There's the aspect where you are writing your script. And this is where Writeful can also give you sentences and phrases that could help you or improve your sentence to be much more formal. And then it will also assist you in terms of structuring your text. And by structuring, we mean there are a few ways in which you could approach, for example, your introduction. When you introduce when you put in your introduction together, there is a particular palette or a manner of introducing a sentence that is used, and Writeful would suggest those type of palettes for you, give you those types of options. And then there's correcting the English language. And this is part of the writing. So when you're done with writing, you would then want to revise your document, right? You want to see if there's missing citations. You want to see if your final text actually has no spelling mistakes or grammatical mistakes as well. So these are the two components of Writeful. And how it does that is it's based on 5 principles, which is basically grammar, spelling, vocabulary, punctuation, and style. So grammar will basically correct your prepositions, your articles that you are using, your subject verb, whether you should be using a singular or plural and nouns, and more. So in this case, the author has written material and methods, and Rightful would pick up that it actually should be materials and methods, and it will make the suggestions for you. And in this case, Rightful is also picking up that instead of using the word on, the author could have used the word in. Right. And then there's also spelling suggestions, and spelling suggestions are not just in terms of English language principles, but in terms of subject-specific scientific terms. So Rightful would pick up if you have spelled a scientific term incorrect, whereas a general English editing tool would not be able to do that. And in this case also, Rightful is picking up the word that is not being used correctly, even though the spelling is correct. So in this case, we find in the text, it says the purpose was to explore the changes in chemical properties. The author had written explode. So Rightful can actually pick up the context to be able to see that the author intended to rather use the word explore instead of explode, and suggest a correction for you. And the other principles is, I'm going to just move on, is vocabulary. In this case, Rightful is suggesting that the author used the word, the aim was to calculate the amount of heat emitted and not the quantity of heat emitted. And punctuation as well, that would be picked up, and style. Now, style specifically addresses the issue of formality and informal English. So in this case, the author had written he observed huge differences in, and Rightful is suggesting that the author rather use the word great, large, considerable, or substantial. So this is the principle that actually Rightful would employ in editing or suggesting how you could go about writing your text. I'm going to just do an example or two in terms of how Rightful works. So I'm just gonna go live. Oh, look, before I go live, actually, it's quite important that I share this slide. Rightful also has two modes. So there's a mode which you download a plugin on your Word. Right, so you'll see when I go live, and when you are working on the Word version, you've got an option of selecting the proofread module, or you want to use the full edit module. The difference here is, so I'm going to read this text for you. The original text was, of this study to assess increase in a motivation of student was the main aim. Right. And Rightful in proofread mode suggests of this study, comma, to assess increases in the motivation of student was the main aim. But when you've got it in full edit mode, it will actually reconstruct your sentence to make it much more formal, to just generally improve the language use and the presentation of your thoughts. In this case, in full edit mode, Rightful has suggested that the author use the main aim of this study was to assess increases in student motivation. And you can all agree that the full edit mode sounds much more formal and sounds much more improved. So that is the different modes in which Rightful works. Right, so I'm just going to show you an example. Okay, so I've got a text, and in this text, I've already selected the proofread mode. I could select the full edit mode, and full edit mode will also suggest more text in terms of how I could go and correct. So what I've done here is just did a document check, and Rightful has already picked up a few mistakes, suggestions that it has made. And I could go in and accept the change. And as I accept the change, Rightful would add those words or those changes into my text. And so this is when you want to just do the edit mode and you want to see what are the suggestions, and Rightful will present the suggestions also in terms of percentage. So this is, in this case, the approaches are used to build these learning communities. And then what Rightful suggests is that the author removes the hyphen there. And it suggests that the author does that 100%. And then it's also highlighting to the author that it does not recommend that the author keeps this word in that format. So these are some of the suggestions. So let's say now I want to actually start writing my text. So I'm just going to put my cursor where I want to write my text, and I want to do a introduction. So I would go to what we call a sentence palette, and I want to write an introduction, and the introduction would be the main aim of the study. So as soon as you select the sentence palette you want to use, let's say the study aim, then Rightful will suggest to you a few sentences you could use. So in this case, I would then select this one, say, I want to use this one. This work aims to validate or call into question. Then I could say call into question. Then Rightful will highlight this aim or this work aims to call into question the theory of, then I would continue writing my text. And if I want to add now more a terminology, then I would go in and say a particular word, this according to the author, etc. According to the author, and then I'll put in that author. And then at this point, I would also insert the author name as well as the term that I'm trying to put in. And then I'd also go into EndNote, and I want to insert the citation. So I click on Insert Citation and just do my search. And I click on Insert my citation, and then my citation will be inserted and my bibliography will be built right at the bottom. So I'm basically using two tools. I'm using EndNote as well as Rightful while I'm writing my text. Okay, so and both these tools are plugins that you can download onto your Word, your Word document. Okay, so that is Rightful, and this is the writing component of Rightful. Now, I just want to showcase to you the revised component of Rightful, and in this case, I'm done writing my text, right? I use the Word plugin, and I just want to run it up again on Rightful to make sure that I improve my language, or I check if I've got everything in order. And Rightful has picked up a few suggestions, and I could just click to make sure that I accept the changes. And when I'm done doing that, I could just download the article, and the article will be downloaded with the corrections already included in my text. Now, when I'm done doing that, I will then go into missing citations, right? So in this case, Rightful has picked up that I've actually inserted all the citations, but I could actually just remove a few citations. Let me just do that quickly, and you will see how Rightful, or actually, let me just use a different example. So I would just go again to the solution, and I want to upload my text, and I upload my text, and Rightful will then search to make sure that I do not have any missing citations. And you can see with the first example, I didn't have any missing citations. But in this case, Rightful can pick up that I could be missing a citation there, and it will pick up that I could be missing 30 citations. So that's how the tool works. That's how the Rightful tool works. Now, lastly, after I've checked that my language is correct, I've checked that I've inserted my citations, I would then want to start publishing, right? I want to publish, and I want to first of all identify potential journals that I could publish with. Then in that case, I would jump again to EndNote. EndNote has got a free resource which is called EndNote Manuscript Matcher. And with Manuscript Matcher, it requires that I put in my article title. So I'm just going to copy an article title. So I type in my article title, and then I also type in my abstract. I type in my abstract, and EndNote will recommend potential journals I could publish in. Let me go back again. I think my abstract was just too vague. So I'm just gonna do that again. Let me just, do that. Okay, I'll leave it at that. And yeah, EndNote will recommend, let me find a different example. Actually use this and it worked. I'm just gonna find a different example. Let me take this one. Right, type in my and then I will put in my abstract. There we go. Find journals. Why it's not working. Actually tried this earlier. Move that. Find journals. This is strange. But anyway, in principle, that's how it works, ladies and gents. Please go and try the platform. Lastly, I want to showcase a platform which is also available in a free version, which is called the Chronos Journal Finder. So how Chronos works is you would go in, select a journal or search for a journal, or select a funder. In this case, I would say my funder is Bill Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then I want to do research in, I'm going to select a Web of Science journal list. And so what Chronos does is before you actually publish with or select a journal, it will showcase to you whether that particular journal is compliant with your funder, particularly where you are funded by a big organization like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or certain foundations that give you certain rules that they will only fund you if you publish in an open access model, for example. So you will see at a glance that this journal is compliant with your funder, and then the estimated APCs will be $6,000 to $3,600 US, and then you will select the journal, and then from there you will start with uploading your article, and you would put in the title of your article, you would put in all the metadata needed by the publisher. And then from there, you would have essentially published or submitted your journal directly to the publisher just using one platform, right? So what the platform does is if I go to grants, I would be able to see multiple publishers. I can be able to search a publisher according to specific journal lists, Scopus, Web of Science, Director of Open Access, and I'll be able to identify journals that are compliant with my funder, and I'll be able to see APC costs for publishing with that particular journal, and then select the journal and actually submit my manuscript that way. So in one platform, I could select multiple, or I have multiple journal portals that I could submit my manuscript with. And yeah, in a nutshell, that is my story, ladies and gents. Do we have any questions?
There were a few questions that are already answered, Sanele.
Okay.
I see there's a question now from Zini. Yes, we will definitely be sharing the recordings and, of course, the presentation slides as well with everyone.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this session. We hope this was helpful. At the least, we hope you would have learned what is available in the industry and what type of information you could have access to as a researcher. And all the best with your research, all the best with assisting researchers, for librarians. And if we don't chat again, have a lovely festive season.
Thank you so much for that, Sanele, and thank you for your presentations as well. Well, everyone, I think we can conclude this meeting. If you do have any questions, my email address is in the chat box. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to assist you. And if you do need more sessions on some of the products, we can definitely arrange it accordingly. So have a great afternoon further. Stay safe, and we'll chat again. Thank you.
Thank you. This was very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.